Thurston put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
The Tigers! The Benji Marshall era starts a week late.
And good evening, everybody. Tuesday, the 26th of March, 2024. You're back for another pumped up, excited episode of the Tiger Town podcast. I'm Zac. He's Toby. How are you, mate?
Oh, mate. Watched highlights at least 30 times now. I am singing. How about yourself?
Yeah, splendid, fantastic, surprised, busy week, but I don't care. I've already copped flack for showing up to work 2 consecutive days this week wearing my Tigers gear, but they can shove it. Guess what's going on tomorrow? Bloody Tigers gear, mate.
Yeah,
good's that?
You don't buy 30 jerseys with just wearing one every once in a while. You wear them so that when you have performance like that, you wear them every single day.
My friend, I haven't even started on the jerseys yet. You wait till they see me getting into the jerseys. I'm on polo shirts and jumpers at the moment. Jerseys are next. Then maybe a mankini. Who knows?
Look, I'd save the Mankini for the grand final because, we've got to get our tickets soon. But, let's think
Special
that far.
occasions.
Special
What
occasions.
I will say, speaking of mankinis, Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, our sponsors on board this year, bestongrounddigital.com. They are the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They will not steal you wrong. bestongrounddigital.com. Thanks to those lads, champions, love their mankinis, and they love a Tigers win, mate.
They do. They love a Tigers win. Mate, everyone loves a Tigers win. Even the people that don't like the Tigers love a Tigers win. Even the Sharks fans.
I would go so far as to say Brent Reed, Beelzebub reincarnate himself, would like a Tigers win. Maybe.
I think there's probably only one person in this entire world that did not like that win on the weekend. That was probably Buzz. That's it.
That's true. I will give credit where credit's due, and this is only a shred of it. He did write a glowing article about that victory, and he actually said, despite being a Cronulla fan, it was good to see the Tigers winning football games. And I don't know whether he was drunk. Well, I do know whether he's drunk. He was obviously drunk. I don't know if he was extra special drunk that night when he wrote that article, but the Tigers weren't out. Weird what happens when you win.
Yeah, and I guess that's what everyone says. They stop writing columns about you when you start winning. But they still find reasons to try to bash us down. Obviously, the Leichhardt Oval situation decided to try to put a damper on our spirits, but it did not. It did not.
So, it did not, it will not, and it shan't, mate. 32-6, Leichhardt Oval, last Saturday, the 23rd of March. The mighty West Tigers, never in doubt, over the Cronulla Sharks, who were, prior to last week, being talked up as one of the form teams of the comp. Mate, give me a brief summary, a quick little sentence. What do you like about it? I know that we're going to expand on it. We're going to elaborate. Oh, yeah. Give me something quick. What do you got?
Dominant. That's the only thing I need to say. Dominant. And that's not something we've said about the Tigers very often in the last quite a few years. As much as the commentators tried to, say how surprising this all was, we just kept twisting the knife, and the final score was what ended up.
Mate, we were just like the Tide on the weekend. Fair dinkum just kept coming. It was so un-Tigers like. And you and I are on some kind of Midas touch streak at the moment. I don't know what's going on, but anytime you and I watch a live game together, well, not live at the game, but we watch the game together, we win. And this is a streak going back a fair way, considering, I guess, that we have had so few wins over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I'm sure that a lot of listeners will probably be listening to this going, why the hell don't you guys watch it together every single week? We have commitments, people. We are fathers. We are business owners. We have commitments. But, if people want to pay for petrol money for us to come and join forces to keep this streak going, more than happy to take it.
Toby will. I'll just walk. I'll get my inner Greta Thunberg out and save the planet a little bit, eh?
Yeah, nah.
Mate,
Nah.
yeah, absolutely. It was it was a very un-Tigers like performance. So, I mean, it's one game. You know, we've played 2 games now this season. One very poor loss that we weren't solo there in thinking that, and then one quite emphatic victory, I guess, against the Sharkies on the weekend. But it was very, very good to see. I'll go through a couple of key stats here now. 53% of possession to the Sharks, 47. Time in possession, obviously, is indicative of that as well. 31 minutes versus their 27. Completion rate, we completed at 86%. Very impressive. They were a far lower 67%. As you'd expect, more time in possession, more runs, more sets, more metres, 1,800 to 1,520. Line breaks 4 apiece, tackle breaks 38 apiece, remarkably similar. Average set distance 41 metres apiece, albeit them 30 centimetres further. So other than that, essentially a lot of our statistics were somewhat even, with kick defusal probably being the only key other stat where we got the jump on the Sharks then. So stat-wise, remarkably similar. It was a case of we did have extra possession, and obviously the Sharks, in terms of their handling in particular, obviously they conceded quite a few errors, but in where are we? In the penalties department, 5-2 and 3-1. So look, the Sharks weren't at their best, but I think a large portion of that was due to the way that we approached our defence.
100%. 100%. And that's the thing that a lot of people aren't giving us credit for. They're just saying how poor the Sharks were, especially Hines. But think about how much pressure we put on Hines. This is something you and I discussed last week on the pod, was how do we shut down the Sharks? And while we both agreed they were very strong across the park, if you slow down Nico Hines's, thinking time, he can panic a little bit and make those poor decisions. And you saw that happen. Twice he kicked the ball out on the full. Twice he ran the ball in the fifth. One he even got almost dragged out, but then lost the ball. Made some very poor decisions in defence. He was getting flustered. He was getting frustrated. And that was all because of the pressure we put on. Like, as soon as, from that very first hit up, and you said it when we were watching the game live, you have never seen Steph run with that much intent before. He winded himself doing it. That's how much that's how hard he ran. Like, he literally, like, for anyone that knows Leichhardt Oval, and hopefully everyone here that listens does know, he basically was at the back of the Keith Barnes stands for that run-up. He wanted everything. And that was the intensity the whole way through. And that was the big difference maker.
Yep. And as you mentioned, and we spoke about it last week in terms of giving their halves time or lack thereof. I think you specifically mentioned that Hines can be somebody you can rush. And we saw when he's forced to make quick decisions in certain situations, i.e. sort of Origin and whatnot last year, that he can be prone to errors. And I'll give credit to West Tigers podcast. I had a bit of a listen, or started listening to their latest episode, and can't remember who it was on there that mentioned it, but one of the boys over there was talking about the fact that he sort of went into his shell after he made a few key mistakes, namely in the first half, those couple of kicks out of the full. And, largely unsighted in the second half. We saw, I can remember a bit more of Trindle maybe, but, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you think about the halves on that day. You had a 32-year-old or 33, I can't remember how old Caesar is, and an 18-year-old playing 32. And, you're playing against two, one's 27, one's 24, and they just outplayed them all across the park.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was that intensity, and it was the intensity, as you just said, all across the park. So it wasn't just in one particular area. They were strong across the park. Yep. Line speed was on point. Chase was on point. Kick pressure was on point when they were kicking. Contesting the football was on point. First up contact was on point. People dropping back for support play, the 1%ers. I mentioned in the game, if you recall, when they shifted to the right off the kick return, and Fatape had dropped himself back to be prepared to receive that as the second passer, and we created half an opportunity on that. Those are things that in the past Could you imagine Joey Leilua pushing back on zero tackle to receive a second pass? They just
Oh, you
that
mean
stuff.
the best center in the game, as he used to claim
Best center in the game, bar none, please. So yeah, it was just that intensity was there. The 1%ers were there. It was a team that looked like they had the motivation and the desire to get the W. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like they'd finally presented themselves to Leichhardt Oval as a team that wasn't just there to go through the motions. They were going to go after the game, and to a man, they went after the game. Tupou had his best game of the year. There was just, and I mention him because he probably won't get much of a mention later. Such were the performances of other people. But yeah, mate, very, very, very pleasing. And all the things that not only we were saying, obviously, but, a lot of talking heads were talking about what was missing in the Tigers' performances. And we talk intensity, and that flowed into other things like the ruck and whatnot, but we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah, and then you talked about, I guess, those 1% players and those extra men coming in and making those opportunities. Fatape coming in and creating that. But it was also in defense as well. I don't know if you remember, but they created a one-on-one with I can't even remember who it was. Why is his name? You'll Talakai. Talakai ran over the top of Fatape because Talakai's huge, created a one-on-one for him. But who came on and gave everything in that cover defense? Papali'i. And literally covered, put him on the ground. Still, I think Talakai made maybe still an extra meter or two after that, but he put him on the ground. That's another thing that hasn't really been evident is the never give up attitude. And you mentioned that too during the game. You mentioned that the thing that pleased you the most was there was that attitude. That was always on, no matter what was happening. We saw it with the Bullers' first try when Galvin was there chasing. He had that energy. He wanted to keep going. That mentality of never give up. Again, we'll use him as an example. Would you see Joey Leilua doing that? I remember vividly seeing Joey Leilua walk back to a try line when it was still there to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that we've been missing for a very long time.
Yeah, and there's players within the side who in the last couple of years have still been there but haven't brought that. And so you, over long periods of time, have seen these players that you think have potential to be good players, but then you don't see them bring that desire and that intensity and that effort in those 1%ers. And you think, is it still here? You look at the likes of Clemmer that played well for a lot of last year but dropped off probably, we would admit, to the back end of the season. Bateman was the same. Strong start, dropped off. Papali'i never brought his A game last year. Fanua Pole last year was solid, but we only saw one or two instances of him really having a cracker of a game. So, yeah, mate, they all clicked on that occasion. The problem that they run into now is they've shown what they can do. And, to be perfectly frank with you and the listeners, I think that they've got a lot of improvement from that performance on the weekend, namely execution. I mean, we were counting during the game. We bombed 4 clear chances with a half chance for another break or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So execution, that's been something that's hindered us for a very long time. And
so if you look at that though, we scored 5 tries and they were a variety of different types of tries. They weren't exactly simply structure-based tries, opportunistic, creating space, that sort of stuff, individual one-on-one efforts. But that blows out to 8 or 9 try opportunities that we created. And to take 5 is great, and it's a really emphatic win. But it's almost the case that 32-6 didn't indicate the dominance of what we had in that regard.
No, 100%. Like you mentioned, a lot of it wasn't structured. But I do think there was quite a few instances that was planned ahead of time. For instance, our initial try to Papali'i. Like you mentioned it on the time,
yes.
You also corrected yourself because you said, "Oh, that was a shit kick." It's a 1%er. That's never going to happen. But then you thought about it a little bit and you went, "But actually, they're probably trying to get the ball away from Mulatalo, who's very high in the air, and give enough time for Fatape to bat it back." And that's clearly, if you think about it, that is something that the coaching team has most likely discussed, and they needed somebody with a strong kicking game to perform that. And head and shoulders, Caesar was probably one of the best halves for the whole weekend in terms of kicking game. I watched quite a few games of the weekend, and I don't think anyone had as much control or ball on a string than Caesar did. Not saying he was the best half over the weekend, not by far, but he was definitely probably the most controlled half in terms of kicking. And that's what we needed. And I think that's what we've been missing for a very long time as well.
Yeah, exactly. He directly caused 2 tries, or contributed to 2 tries with both of those. One of them being a try assist, and the second one probably denied a try assist simply because it was Buller that tapped it forward, but for his own try. So I don't know. Actually, have to look at the stats there as to see. Let's have a look there now. Actually, you've got try assist there. That's all right. I'll come back to that. But yeah, mate, very impressive with that kicking game as well. And yeah, it was interesting. Just to segue into talking about the kicking game, it was whilst we got 2 tries off the short, deliberate kicks, which sort of went against the grain of positional play. I think that was the approach all night, because you could notice that his bombs weren't super deep. What they were was they were placed in that awkward no man's land where you had to have Kennedy come forward for most of them, and it gave our chasers a chance to make it a contest. Excuse me. In fact, the one where Buller just tapped it into, sorry, I set you off with a yawn there, my friend.
You did.
Big week. The one where Buller contested and just tapped it into the shoulder of...
Yeah. I think it was Trindle. No, I think it was Trindle.
Or Trindle or Romeo, yeah. And then got out to Fartape, who we thought had scored. You know, that bomb in that situation, again, was pulled a bit further back. If he goes to get that a metre or 2 out from the line rather than 10 or 11 like it was, then Buller probably doesn't get there. Our chasers aren't there to contest that football. And all of a sudden it's not an opportunity. So, yeah, I think in many ways, not just the short kicks did he pull back from a traditional kick, which messes up with those defensive structures that you're playing against that are very rhythmical. I think that he also used the long and the high kicks in a similar vein, and it was good. It was something that I've never really thought about, to be honest, particularly with long or high kicks. To me, it's your attacking bombs or your high long bombs, you know, the ones I mean from about 50 out. Not the ones where you're 20 out in an attacking opportunity. But I think for me, traditionally, I think about you're trying to pin them, so you get as close to that touch line so you can bury them back, give your chasers the chance to come through. But yeah, that idea of pulling it forward in a no man's land, I never really considered it, and it was effective. It worked. Like, you are sacrificing that 10, 20 metres, right? Because you are sacrificing depth. But at the same time, if you're making a contest, it's almost like, are you willing to trade that 10, 20 metres of territory for an opportunity for a mistake or something like that? And it's not always going to work your way or go your way, sorry. And sometimes that loss in territory with that approach might affect you. But yeah, as we sit here now and as we're talking about it, that was a really clever game plan.
It was because you also think about it, like you said, that he was working, and it was very clear it was deliberate because he did a lot more, like quite a bit through the entire game. To bring Kennedy onto the ball means that he's running forward. Yes, if he catches on the full, he's running forward on the fly, but he's also opening his chest up to actually be slammed. So it's a very courageous catch. Not a lot of people can do it, and to Kennedy's effort, he handled it quite well. But creates that sort of fear factor as well. Because how many times do you see a second rower want to get right into those ribs and just clock them when they come through? And that's what he was giving what I felt he was giving a lot of his outside backs the chance to do, or to contest the ball, depending on how deep he was kicking it. But he was doing it on purpose too, because you have a look at probably one of their strongest ball runners, especially, well, definitely out of the back five, but probably overall, is Katoa. And they weren't really kicking it to him deep anyway, because he loves to just run it hard and run it straight. They were keeping him out of the contest for those kick returns as well. So,
well, that's an interesting thing too that I didn't consider. That adds to that too. You reduce their ability to get up speed and produce kick return meters and post contact meters off the back of that. If that's the case, I dare say that's probably a strategy we're going to employ a bit.
Yeah. And that you need somebody with a strong kicking game to do that. And I think I think we're both probably in agreement now that it's probably Caesar's jersey to lose. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, we've got, we'll probably expand a little bit more on the halves a little bit further, but he produced just a very mature effort, and that's something we thought that Brooks would have had by now, but he just didn't have that. I guess that leadership alongside him to develop into that half that we wanted him to be. Whereas obviously Caesar he's that mature half right now. So
Caesar most certainly is not a passenger either, though. We mentioned it in the first game when he came on. He brought this little bit of an up-tempo, energy lifting sort of inspiration during his time on the field. I noticed that on the weekend too. Very often he'd be first man up to make first contact, and he'd be that extra half step ahead of the line to try to catch someone off guard. And he defended well. He's very solid in contact. So he was making his presence known on both sides of the ball. It was a very complete performance. Mate, to be perfectly frank, and I know that it's one game, but I'm just you can only judge on the sample size that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Aiden Caesar looked on the weekend to me like what Reynolds has done for Brisbane.
Yeah, that is a very good observation and very good comparison as well. I 100% agree. Never thought of that. Yeah.
So, which in many ways, it's brought a calmness and a steadiness, and importantly as well, that strong boot that can come into games with a young side, with an inexperienced side. And when we do get into those moments where the game feels like it's getting away from you, those are the types of people you need to be able to at least steer the ship in the right direction. And we saw early in that game, the Sharks were shit hot. And at times, I think you and I sort of looked at each other in that first 20 minutes and started to think, is this going to go the way of the Canberra game? And I remember that I was remarking a couple of times about, oh, here we fucking go. It's just another territory-a-thon and possession-a-thon to the opposition again, and we're going to be out of the game. Lo and behold, we roared our way back into it and did it the tough way. And, there's a lot of people that we'll mention and their contributions, no doubt, but Caesar in no small part played his role with his boot, I reckon.
Oh, by far. I think now that you've mentioned that comparison to Reynolds, I think myself, like a lot of our listeners, probably all of our listeners, 100% agree with you. And if you really think about it, before Reynolds came on, didn't the Broncos win a wooden spoon? And now they made a grand final? Comparisons can keep happening if we just keep working.
And you've just done it.
Hold on. You like it when I do this? I just tap the table really hard.
Oh, you can do it in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, look, it's funny. It's one game. And again, disclaimer, it's the smallest of small sample sizes. But at the very least, in some ways, if you do it for an entire game and you put in a performance for that game, it shows what you were capable of as an individual and as a team. We mentioned about the team before. You've shown what the benchmark is now. This is what you've shown us you can do. So if I look at Caesar, I look at somebody who I would be, if his body's holding up, and Benji's reporting that he's one of the fittest in the club, which is not out of the realms of possibility. 32 these days is not 32 10, 15, 20 years ago. Mate, and I know this is a big sidetrack. It's what we're known for, tangents.com, tangenttigertown.com.
Yeah.
It's what makes the yarn special, mate.
Absolutely.
Would you consider talking to Aiden if this type of form continues, if he plays this role well consistently, and say, mate, what do you reckon about another year? And then maybe pushing into something post-football. What are your thoughts on that? And then turning basically and shopping Bud. Because then what you end up having is Luai, Caesar, Galvin, and Latu.
100%. 100%. I think that, and it is unfortunate for the kid, but I think unfortunately Bud has shown what he is capable of. I think that from everything, I didn't watch the game, and I don't think I watched any highlights, but I think from the New South Wales Cup game, I think Latu did what we expect him to do. I don't think he had a blinder, but I think he was very, very solid and very composed for an 18-year-old. I think that it's he's an NRL half, Bud, but we signed him out of desperation. Let's be honest with that. We definitely did, because we needed somebody with a bit of experience. None of us thought that Galvin would probably be our first pick half by round 4. So it's
by round 1, essentially.
yeah, but when I say first pick, like solidify his spot by then is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Undroppable.
And,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I think eventually Bud will probably be on the outer and Latu will come in because he's definitely somebody that has shown he can come on and play different positions as well. So
yeah, he did. He only played half a game, Latu. I think just coming back from that hamstring, they're managing him. He's been named on the extended reserves, which is nice for him this week. I'm not sure if that ever happened at Manly. It could well be his first experience for that. I saw him in the sheds. Not personally. I saw that he was in the sheds when they were singing.
Where's my photo?
When they were singing. Funny fact, he's a spitting image of my cousin, I reckon. But anyway, when they were singing the song,
he was in there with the song, was he?
What's that?
Was he in there with the song? Was he?
He was in there, yeah. He looked like he was having a good time. I don't know if he was singing it, but I don't think you're singing if you haven't made your debut. I don't know. Anyway. And yeah, so he played 40 minutes, sliced through for a try himself, solo.
Yep.
And from all reports that I've heard, it was strong when he came back. He's built, he's as thick and stocky as ever. And yeah, he just looks a class above, which is not surprising.
Yeah, and I think, to an extent, that kind of worries me a little bit as well, that he came back and he flourished again. Well, and I say flourished, it was half a game of football in resis. But if people keep seeing these sort of things, especially given the fact of how highly you touted him, and when we compare your judge of a player compared to my judge of a player, it's leaps and bounds between each other. I thought Kyle Lovett was going to be something. So,
No. I just think everyone looks at players differently, mate.
Yeah, no, but you definitely have a knack for that sort of stuff. So, it's definitely a player that I don't want to lose if people just get a bit of a sniff and desperation that they need a half, and he's doing well.
Yeah, well, the good news in that regard is we've got Lachlan Galvin signed till the end of 2026 with 3 years at the moment. So he's a lock. He's a local junior. He's going to be playing with his best mates. He's not going to want to go anywhere. We've got Latu, who's signed for 4 years starting this year. So he's got a long-term contract that carries him through till he's 22 plus, 22, 23.
Also has his brothers.
All his brothers are here. So I dare say he may not want to leave. We've got the likelihood that there's a whole bunch of halves coming off or retiring, a lot of old heads. There's a big exodus happening. Your likes of your Reynoldses and your Cherry Evanses and your Townsends and all these types of players that will be exiting stage left. So it makes shopping the likes of Bud a lot easier. And then you got something like the fact that Galvin, we don't know what his body's going to do. He's a big, tall timber at the moment, but inevitably those types of people do fill out. And so is he better then suited to a centre or a back row or a lock or whatnot down the track, which then makes Latu available? Does Latu not become the ideal 14, which personally I think he should be? I think as soon as he's fit, he goes straight in for Bud Sullivan because he can play hooker in the halves. He can play at the back. I'm sure he's played centre before, so he's versatile. Mate, I think we've spoken about this in the past, but it's going to be a problem we're going to run into in terms of that log jam. Luai is the immovable object, unless these other two are just absolutely killing it. But, through injury or whatnot, there will be opportunities. And we've got to remember the benefit to having both of these guys on board is they're both 18 and they're both locked up long term. I mean, they're 18. Yeah. In 4 years, they'll be 22. In 4 years, nearly half a decade, they'll be Buller's age.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a lot of time. There's a lot of first grade ahead of these blokes. Fingers crossed, and hit that table like you like to do. So I think that there's a lot of water under the bridge. There's a lot of ifs, buts, and coconuts. We don't know what happens with injuries and all this sort of stuff. Very rarely, touch wood, does a young player not suffer some sort of injury as they're coming through, whether they're forwards or backs or whatever. So, yeah, a lot of things to play out in that halves race. But look, I'd much rather have them than not. And I think having Bud there as a bargaining chip, there are clubs that are going to want a first grade capable half. He's not going to break the bank for them. Look at the Titans. You see Foran going around again. They're going trash. Tanner Boyd apparently was woeful on the weekend.
I watched that. So, a bit of a tangent. I watched that game. That was by far the worst performance of a NRL half I've ever seen, and I'm including Brandon Wakeham in that.
Yeah, there you go. Wakeham actually had some all right games.
Yeah, but he's also had some
mate, so
games.
yeah, that's true. But tell me that he's not tempting to a side like that. So yeah, it's very early, and I know that Bud Sullivan's a talented player, but mate, unfortunately for him, which is fortunately in some ways for us, he has just arrived at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he's got a couple of freight trains coming up his backside that are bringing you off the production line, and yeah, he's got to play himself into a jersey, or he's going to find himself in reserve grade.
100%, and it's unfortunate for him because he definitely has a lot of promise. I just think he's, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think he's a halfback, and I think it's very, very clear that we have good stock coming through, and I think your prediction of him not being there by the end of the year is probably getting stronger by the week. So
yeah, mate, there's a fair chance, but as we said, we'll have to wait and see how things play out. Anything can happen. We could lose 3 halves in a single game. Sharkies lost 3 forwards in a single game, 3 middles.
true.
So injuries happen, and what's that?
One was warming up.
Injuries happen. It's part of the game. You know what I'd do? I'd be on the phone to Parramatta on Tuesday next week after our game, saying we'll loan you Bud Sullivan.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yep, we'll take Blaze Talangi for the rest of the year to develop him up. Who played 5'8" with Lockie Galvin, or halfback with Lockie Galvin, played in the halves for Endeavour Sports High. They were halves partners. Hey,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But then again,
you got to be thinking.
Moses is only out for 8 weeks, so it's not
Yeah,
like he's out for
12.
season.
The other side of the coin is that would leave us simply with Latu, who's coming back from hamstring, and Galvin, who's built like a string bean, and Aiden Caesar in the half. So maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit there, but I don't know. You can get creative with it.
Yeah, why not?
Mate, what we might do is I'm just going to jump through the 17. You can just we'll just give a brief little summary about what you thought their strengths were. Try not to write a whole PhD in Apasai Coruscant, even though both of us could. That man was outstanding. Anyway, Dream Buller, mate.
For me, his strength, I think, I reckon his support play. Again, it's something that I harped on last year. I wanted to see improvement in that, and it continues to happen this year. So his support play was great. Like, if there was a half break, he seemed to be there, and that's what I love if he can be a lot more of a ball player. But that's what I love about halfbacks. That's why I think Teddy, is as good as he is, even if he is sure.
Yeah, mate, for me, it's he's starting to play make and he's looking more threatening. Last year, he was a defensive beast, but we were a bit worried about his confidence with the ball. He looks strong. I said to you in the game, I said, I can't believe a bloke that wiry has a fend that strong because he just doesn't look like he should be able to. He made 5 tackle breaks. He sliced straight past Kennedy for a beautiful try, just completely solo.
Yeah,
for me...
That was right after you said, I can't wait for him to straighten. You literally said it. Yeah. You said, I can't wait for him to straighten. Bang. Nostradamus.
And he did. He did. I go, boom, there it is. It was good. So that's for me. I think I love what you said. The support play is unreal. He's there every time now. It's incredible. Yeah. He's such a quick learner. But yeah, for me, he's now becoming an attacking threat with the ball. And that has tremendous benefit long term because then people start shifting their eyes out the back on sweeps. Whereas in the past, early Buller or pre-Buller, whenever we had, who was the fullback before Buller?
I don't know, Moses
Dewey and Laurie. Yeah. So that creates more chances inside for your centers and your crash runner as well. So
yeah, 100%.
Charlie Staines, what'd you make of his game?
That bomb try annoyed me, but I think he was solid.
He was better. It's probably his best performance for the year. Not saying a whole lot. I still am a bit concerned about his returns, his kick returns. I think that they've got to be a bit more decisive in when they give him the ball. He's not the type that can just receive a one pass off on a rushing early defence on tackle one. He's going to get smoked every time. He either needs the ball on the kick return, so if the fullback takes it, sweep around and take the run where he's got space and he can move a little bit and get between defenders, or he needs to be able to scoot from dummy half. So that's my only concerns with him going forward.
Is that more, do you think, mental than anything? But because I remember vividly us having that conversation at the start of middle of last year, that he was by far one of our best, and one of the things was he ran with no fear. He just ran at the line. Ever since he had a perforated bow, which is pretty intense. Do you think it's more mental?
No, I mean, mate, by all means, it could be. I hadn't considered it really. It's not for me to say whether he's still got mental scars about that. Some people, doesn't bother them. They're over it and they could play as soon as they're ready. A couple of weeks, or several weeks later. Other people, they could carry scars like that mentally for years. So, yeah, you might be right with his impact. Yeah. Maybe that's why he's reluctant. I just think we need to be a bit more strategic with how we use him, whereas the opposite winger, Tupou, is just a wrecking ball. He's a Tuiaki in a way. You just give him the ball, he runs hard, he skittles a couple of defenders, makes some post-contact, and that's where he's best used in the first three tackles, is as that battering ram. I just think we need to use Staines here a bit differently. Yeah, fair. And you can bring strategy into that, like something as simple as your first 2 or 3 tackles and who gets the ball when, and how do we deliver ball to that person on tackle 2. That can be strategy. That seems like it's very fly by night, but you can have some concepts around how you want to use your players to their strengths.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate,
no, you go.
No, that's all right.
I was going to say, like, for instance, just for an example, if they kick it over to Staines' side, but he's not the receiver, he's the scoot out of dummy half rather than one off the ruck. Because
exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right. And he's probably a scoot to the blind side, so that he can't cop 3 or 4 defenders in on him, as you might do in the middle, which can push back a bit. Solomon Fatape, mate, what'd you like about his game? What'd you make of his game?
He's just going from strength to strength. He wasn't in my starting 17 and probably wouldn't make my starting 17 all year at the start of the year. Now I think we've got the perfect center pairing. I think that he still has some deficiencies. I think there's a couple of times he overread in defense, but it was better than the week before. So I think he's learning. I think that's another big thing. And I'll go on just a tad tangent here. But you said it about Buller as well, and I said it about Samuela last week. I feel like this next batch that's coming through, or these players that we have now, they're not just good footballers, they're smart footballers. And so they're developing and they're learning quickly. So I feel like potentially whether that's something you can see in a player, I guess, consistently, like as a coach, I'm not sure. Maybe that's what Benji saw him, but I don't know. It's becoming a recurring thing. So
there's several examples of it, and we talk about the shortcomings in Buller's game last year, as spectacular as he was for a rookie. And you mentioned it before, support play. And I spoke of being an attacking threat and running with a bit more purpose. He's bringing those things into his game. You mentioned the likes of Samuela. Samuela early in our trials, and then even with his Manly stints, had been known for being sloppy. So he'd get somebody high, he'd be a bit lazy, he'd rough somebody up, he'd give away a silly penalty. Already in the last few games, he's put in incredible amounts of effort. I can't wait to wrap him in a minute. And again, touch wood, he's pulled that stuff out. That can't be coincidence, because players are who they are, and those things are things that you need to be able to learn on the run. I've read as well from quite a few reputable sources that Lockie Galvin is a massive student of the game, and he will adapt and change quickly and learn on the run, and that's part of what makes him such a great player. Sorry, I don't want to overspeak. Such a great player coming through.
Such a great prospect.
And he is a great prospect, most definitely, mate. Juzzy Olam. Have you seen a better club debut than what he put forward?
No. Everything screamed of his performance. I have a point to prove. Everything screamed of it. And that's
when you scored his try, I don't know if you saw the look on his face, but it was game face straight at the crowd, and then he looks down and he pointed or grabbed the tiger on his jersey, and part of me couldn't help but think, this is what I am now, Craig.
Yeah.
And you guys, you let me go. So yeah, everything he did was with purpose. It's funny. I look at him in the back line and immediately it puts a smile on my face at the moment, because he's brought something. Again, he's played a game and a half, but he's brought something that I don't think I've seen maybe ever. Maybe the only times I remember it was when we had Chuiaki and Korobiti.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something about Chrissy Lawrence. I'm like, oh, well, we went almost a few episodes without you mentioning Rowdy.
No, and what I mean by that is, I love Chris Lawrence. Love you, Rowdy. I had to get it in, mate.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, what I basically mean is, you look at these players out wide, and they're solid, they're quick, they're built, and they're a defensive threat. And that messes with attacks. I don't care what you say. When anybody, I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, whenever you came up against Manly with Steve Maddai, tell me that did not mess with opposition structures at times and throw
100%.
them out.
The halves wouldn't go as deep as they would, because there was the opportunity of you were going to get, if you have a half that can take down a fronty the way that he did, I think it was, I can't remember who it was for Souths, but he absolutely annihilated from the side. Definitely makes you second guess what you want to do.
Ben Ross?
No, it wasn't Ben Ross. And it annoys me because I know his little brother as well, but I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Okay. Listeners, if you remember who Toby's talking about, who Steve Maddai flogged or cut in half the Rabbitohs, throw it on
let us know in the comments, because I know I'll probably Google it and remember after this, but I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
Tyrrell.
No, mate.
Tyrrell. Steve,
Dave Tyrrell.
Dave Tyrrell.
Yeah, that's right. He's a good player. Underrated. Yeah, mate. He gives me confidence on that edge for some reason. I mean, for obvious reasons, we sort of mentioned some of them. But he's a goer. He's a competitor. The fact he was there when Appy unexpectedly ducked his head through for support to be in the right position was just incredible.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, it is. I think it also helps that he came from a structure where, poor efforts weren't acknowledged, or weren't something that was, I guess, of the norm. You had to give your best effort every single time. So you were always pushing up. You were always helping. You were always there. So I think that's, Bellamy will probably go down as one of the greatest coaches that ever lived. And he obviously has a way of dealing and instilling these sort of things in his players. So we're reaping the benefits of that.
Absolutely, mate. I mentioned Tupou earlier. He was at his destructive best. I was highly critical of him for not being in position when Galvin slipped the pass for Olam for that break, which was, in my opinion, a drop try. But other than that, I'd say that Toops was very, very strong. 8 tackle breaks, some massive post-contact meters. He was big.
Yeah, I think he got us on the front foot off a lot of kick returns. So.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, Lockie Galvin. How'd Lockie go in his second game?
Said it last week. I said that I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. He's had one game, but he had a blinder. He does not look out of place in a first grade jersey, does he? Not at all. I think the thing that pleased me the absolute most about him, and I mentioned this to you, and I think it was potentially the set before Seyfarth went over, or maybe it was actually might have been the play. It was the play just before Caesar kicked and Papali'i scored. But I watched him, and he ran and supported, and as soon as he backtracked, he was screaming at his outside men. There was no quiet little mouse. There was nothing. And I've said this to you, and the listeners are probably sick of me saying, but I've said this to you like time and time again. Halves need to be the loudest talkers on the field. And I know that I'm not saying anything new. I know I'm not saying that I have the miracle right here in my hands, but he was just loud. And that's what I was really happy with. And that's what I was really surprised with too, because he's an 18-year-old playing against men and with men.
No comment. Mate, what impressed me, there's several things. It's hard to not be impressed by the composure of the lad. We spoke about it last week. But one thing that caught my eye is he had equally the most runs in the game. He ran the ball 17 times.
Really?
Which is remarkable. It's the same as Steph, same as Polly. Yeah, mate, he is not afraid to run the football. He's going to take his chances. And we saw on a couple of occasions he nearly created an overlap. And then he put Olam through for a line break with a line break assist. So he also threw the last pass for Buller, might I add, and put it on the spot for Buller to slice through.
He straightened up, dug into the line, out the back.
Yeah.
So,
and if you watch the way that he sliced through on that Olam break, it's just beautiful because he weaves across, he draws Nico to slide, and then just gets around his arc enough to pull through past the centre Ramian, have his hands up out of the way to avoid the hand to be able to easily be in a position to pop it. And the pass was perfect, right on Olam's chest. Yeah, mate, he's a talent. And the exciting thing in many ways is this is the worst he's ever going to be. And I don't mean he's not going to have bad games. He's going to have a lot of bad games because he's a young man learning as he goes. But we're going to be able to, fingers crossed, watch this kid develop in first grade over the years because his baseline where he starts is good enough, easily almost, is more than good enough to hold down his spot. You know, like I said, he's going to have dips and troughs, and he's going to have down moments, but to be able to watch his game grow and evolve over the next few years is going to be really nice.
Oh yeah.
So the same way in some ways that for whatever reason, Dylan Brown over Parra has had the opportunity to. Now he's still got a long way to go, but he's been able to develop and grow in first grade. And those that have seen Dylan Brown at his best know that he's a pretty complete player now.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking probably more like very similar, same way as Sam Walker, in the way that Sam Walker had that tremendous debut, then dropped off, went to New South Wales Cup for a little bit, and now he's back to his best. Very well might happen to Galvin in terms of having a bit of a lull, but at the same time, like you said, he's 18. He's gonna learn the game probably faster than most, but he's still gonna learn it against men. So he might have those ebbs and flows.
For a magism, to use a magism. Mate, we've discussed Caesar at length, so we won't go over him again. Steph. Now, I called last week Steph would run for 200 metres.
Yep.
I tell you what, he got mighty close. He ran for 178. It was 189.
Yeah, I thought
the night off on the stats, and it got pulled back 11, which I was spewing about. But for me, mate, he was immense. He was, I reckon, close to his best game in a Tigers jumper.
That's what a lot of people are saying too. Best game in a Tigers jumper. And it's hard to dispute that. He was hungry. He was powerful. He was in everything. If anyone ever... I feel like if any of these people, those rumours that go around that he could get disgruntled if he doesn't start winning or anything like that, the passion and the energy he showed for that jersey at Leichhardt, for me, solidified that is our future captain right there.
Yeah, one of my other predictions, if you recall, is we'll extend him during the year. I still reckon that's hot money.
Do it.
4-year extension. Yeah, mate, he was incredible. To me, he looked like the pack leader, and I think that's the role that he's going to grow into. And I hope he continues on the trajectory he's going on, because every performance this year, for the most part, has been very impressive from my books. In my 100%. Book, sorry.
Yep. And he's only, 23?
I think he's 23. Yep. I think he turns 24 later this year. So
that is incredible.
He's just about to start to come into his prime years in the next couple of years. So, yeah, he's a player, and long may that development continue.
100%.
Mate, happy Coruscant. We could talk for a long time, but give me your brief summary. What'd you make of that performance?
I'm going to give you one word, and that's Superman. That was ridiculous. Not only that, bloke was basically shitting his pants before the game, literally. So to anyone that has kids in daycare and anyone that's ever caught gastro knows how horrible that feeling is. And he did that and then played that sort of a performance. Superman. That's it.
Yeah, mate, the worst I've ever felt in my entire life was when I had gastro, and I've broken my arm. I've done my ACL. I've had bits and pieces. My appendix nearly blew up on me last year. It's it's no joke. Yeah, it was shocking when I had it. So to think he's dragged himself out and done that. I'll tell you what. At one point, I think you speculated, oh, he's not there. Maybe I think he hurt himself because he didn't take the kick at goal late in the first half. I said, no, he's fine. He's fine. He played that well that you didn't even notice, which in and of itself is ridiculous.
He played that well when he keeled over and started throwing up. Our first instinct was, oh, he just got hit in the nuts. That's what our instinct was. It had nothing to do with him being under the weather.
Mate, yeah, Superman indeed. He's become the heart and soul of this club. You know, he's become the player that he's just put this club on his back and said, let's going to turn it around. I don't know if you remember our conversation a couple of years ago, but at one point we were talking about what we needed, and one of the things you mentioned is we need somebody to come in and bleed for the jersey again, and lead the club out of the doldrums. We've got him.
Yep.
And his name's Api Coruscant, mate. He's an absolute champion, and what a weapon.
Well, that's the thing. It's not just that one performance based off everything he was dealing with. You look at these young guys coming through, and you look at a performance like that with everything he was going through and what Api achieved. You have no excuse. It's like excuses are out the window now. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, I stubbed me toe. I can't do this." It's like, mate, this bloke was bloody almost on an IV drip, and he still outplayed everyone on that field, and he still carried you and led you. You have no excuses, and that's what we haven't had for a long time. That's what we haven't had probably since Farrah and Marshall were together and they were in their prime. And I'm talking like 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yep.
So,
yep, mate, going incredibly well. Long may it continue. Clem, bit of a quieter game for Clem, and for me, he was fine. He just went in and did his job. He just did what he did. He trudged through 116 metres. He made his tackles as he always does, and I think he just got outshone by a few others. But that speaks to them and their performance being so positive rather than him.
Yeah, and he got a few more minutes than he did against the Raiders as well. So, look, I don't expect every forward, or you don't expect every forward to be a Steph, to be a Payne Haas, to be this and that. You have a look at some of those players. Their opposite number generally gets, or not opposite number, their buddy in the pack generally get outshone. I can't even remember who Payne Haas's front row partner was in Vegas. Can't even remember. Was Jensen maybe? I don't know.
Corey Jensen, maybe?
Yeah. But like,
I'm not 100%.
They do the
Fletcher
little
Baker?
things. Yeah, they do the little things. They get through the work, and they make it so that it's easier for your halves. That's what you need from them.
Yep, exactly right. And I think he's very quickly becoming a squad player and a good clubman. And so, he played well. Papali'i, mate.
Best game for our club by far. And that's coming off the back. That's coming off the back of me. I think I said the same thing last week. So he's going from strength to strength.
Yeah, doesn't he look far more like the player that he was at Parramatta now?
100%. And
hustling, bustling, breaking tackles, getting offloads away.
100%. But again, it's got to that point where you had a prediction in our season preview that looks like it's going to come true. I had a prediction that looks like it's not going to come true. So there you go. But yeah.
Well, we can't win them all. Hey, Johnny Bateman, vice captain.
I think he did everything that was expected of him and maybe a little bit more. He was a big reason I feel that the kick pressure was as sustained as it was. I remember
I'm glad you mentioned that.
He got in Nico's face quite a few times. I think he's the reason that Nico kicked it out twice, both times. But not just that, he got in Trindle's face. his first up contact, he was 3 steps ahead. He just did what you needed him to do, and he did it well. So,
yeah, that's what I liked about him. He just looked like an old hard head out on an edge that just locked the edge down.
yeah.
Like he just did all the 1%ers right as he does. He's just an absolute terrier. You can't get past him. You can't get around him. You might get briefly over him. He'll come again at you. He's just tenacious, and he put that into his performance against Nico as well, as you said. He led that kick pressure, and he's another one of those energy barometers. I think when Johnny Bateman's on, he brings a lot of people with him, and I think the more and more of these people that they would have seen going hard and intense that game, it just brought everybody together. And I think in many ways it was led by that man. Great choice for
100%.
vice captain, my type of player.
And another quality English back row we brought to the club.
Yeah,
we all know my favourite player. So Gareth Ellis, favourite player that has never got a jersey.
The pair of them, they met each other over the off-season, I think, when Ellis came out for his West Tigers alumni jersey presentation.
They did.
That was cool.
So, I'd love to meet the bloke one day.
You will, bud. You will. Gary, if you're listening, shoot us a message. We'd love to get you on the pod, champion.
Do it.
Fanua Pole.
Oh, solid. He's definitely locked down that lock position for himself now. I think it was very clear, we were not fans of Seyfarth's game against the Raiders. He wasn't the starting lock that we needed. And it was clear that Benji wasn't going to play a lock that was that linchpin. It was the link between the halves, or the link between the outside backs in terms of attack. He wanted somebody that was essentially a middle third, but tightened up that middle in defence, and that's exactly what Pole did. And that's it's the same thing. It's his to lose.
I reckon he was immense. I reckon you sort of understated his performance a little bit then. Ran for over 150 metres. His footwork was just ballistic. He ran with purpose.
Knocked out Dale Finucane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, with his chin. He had a couple of big, heavy carries. He brought that intensity himself. He was unreal. He was great. His contact, him and Sam Weller, again, those two blokes, their first up contact, mate, if that needs to be the blueprint for everyone. Because when you get hit by those two, you stay hit.
Yeah. You don't want to get up very quickly.
Now, Bud, mate, we only saw him for 14 minutes. He only had a brief little cameo.
Underwhelming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, I think that the game was already gone. I think he... all right, I'm actually going to refresh that. Thinking back to it, it wasn't underwhelming. It just didn't have the opportunities to achieve what he probably want to achieve. He had, passable service out of dummy half to the outside backs. His pass that went out to, I think it either went to Caesar, then went to Galvin, or went straight to Galvin for Buller's final try. But it was quick. It was straight to the chest. It was what you needed from your dummy half. So I will take that back. It wasn't underwhelming, just didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I agree. I think he did his job. Like it's what can you do in 14 minutes when the game's already gone and the team's had a performance? It's hard to make a stamp or get yourself noticed, really. I mentioned during the game, if you recall, I actually liked the fact that he had a crack at the line.
He did.
I was encouraged by that because if you remember back to last week, my major criticism was that he's been playing too safe and too conservative, and I don't see him as that type of player. So I was pleased to see him have a crack there. And yeah, look, I think that Latu, provided he has another good week or two in resis and really stamps his claim, I think that Bud could find himself out of the 17 pretty soon if he doesn't show something a bit extra. But at least on the weekend he did his job, mate. Alex Seyfarth, what did you make of Alex Seyfarth?
Greatly improved. But from where he was, he could only really go north. He just either stay shit or get better, and he got better. So I think he ran a very good line for his try. Did very, very well to keep his ball carrying arm off the ground to cross the line. Yeah,
it was really impressive.
I think he had again some. I didn't notice it until you pointed it out to me. Again, was a couple of ruck issues in terms of controlling that ruck, but nowhere near as bad against the Canberra game.
Yeah.
So greatly improved.
And still overcommitted on one or two occasions. Ran past the ball carrier, overcommitting on the return. Defensively, I think that, it was improved. It was improved. But, like, to give credit where credit's due, he was good. He was really good in his stint. He played really well. He patched up a lot of the areas that we'd been scathing, particularly me, of in the past. I was very worried about him being picked, to be honest, but he came in, he did his job, and he did it really well. So full credit to him.
It's
Good
funny.
man.
It's funny. You have likened him to a golden retriever in the past, and if
Yep.
you're starting forward, with that golden retriever energy, you will make stupid mistakes when people can take advantage of them. But if you come off the bench with that energy and those mistakes do happen, they're probably not as costly. So,
yeah, it'd be pretty funny setting an energised golden retriever in a dog park full of tired dogs. Just getting that Alex Seyfarth image of just prancing around the field. Anyway, we must be getting a bit long in the tooth, mate. We're going off the deep end. Myself, especially. Twali copped a bit of a head knock. Only played himself 17 minutes. Was serviceable in that time, so we won't really touch too much on him, mate. But Sam Fainu.
Again, he's another player that has solidified that jersey for his own. It's his to lose. He was literally everything we need from a forward rotation in terms of the bench spot. He brought that energy. He brought that controlled aggression. Again, we mentioned it, the intelligence of this kid to be able to change so quickly in terms of his game style, in terms of his, measured aggression. I'm very excited given he's 20 and he's signed for 4 years. He will replace one of our back rowers soon. Most likely Bateman when he retires.
He's a star.
Yeah.
He's an out-and-out star, this kid. Like fair dinkum, he is one of the most competitive in everything effort play type of players that I've seen. And it's the type of effort and competitiveness you would see out of Cam Murray or Tallis Duncan, except he's starting to get towards the size of Olakawatu. It's wild. Like that's what it seems like to me. If Olakawatu and Cam Murray had a clone, you're getting something like Samuel Fainu.
It's not a bad comparison either. With when you look at Olakawatu and you look at Samuel, a very similar build, very similar playing style. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, there's more comparisons in the future.
Mate, he's incredible. I'm so impressed by what Samuel Fainu's done in these couple of games. Like Dad said, his performances in terms of where he's at in his career and I guess the role that he plays and how he can exceed expectations. For me, he's more impressive than Galvin.
Yeah, and that's a fair point.
In terms of what his job is and how much he's exceeding it, what Galvin's done has been incredible, and the poise that he has and the vision that he has is just blowing us away. Sam, anyway, I could spin my wheels and just keep going forever on it. He's thoroughly impressive, and I'm stoked on having him, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Mate, that was quite the game. I'm sure I'm going to watch it again before the weekend at some point, maybe even this evening if we go. If I have the chance to wrap it up in time. So might move on. Any more little comments or whatnot before we go on to the next topic?
I wasn't a fan of Benji trying to pull the stone cold face like Wayne Bennett when we went over for tries. Show some emotion, mate. That's why we love you.
You know what he was doing? He was saving it all up for the new team song. Do you see him getting into that?
The one that he wrote.
The one that he wrote, yeah. It'd be interesting to hear. Excuse me. Set you off with a yawn again. It'd be interesting to hear the actual rendition of it because we knew the old one quite well. But we'll see how that one catches on. I look forward to him belting it out after a couple when they don't have to hold up the sheets of paper to learn the bloody thing.
Yeah, bloody oath. I'm looking forward to, by the time I go down to see them at Leichhardt when we play the Titans, that they know it off by heart. They come out and sing it with the crowd.
Yeah. Mate, speaking of Leichhardt, I'm not going to open up this topic completely. What I think we do is we probably push it. It's probably going to be an ongoing story, so we might be able to talk about this in the coming weeks. Needless to say that if it goes down the path of the Tigers withdrawing from Leichhardt in some capacity, it would be devastating to the club. I don't think, and the fan base, from a cultural perspective, I don't think that any rational fan would disagree with that statement. If you do, you do. But I might just leave it there. Anything you want to add quickly? Because we can dive into it, but we're getting a bit long now. So
yeah, I think a lot of the other pods have probably touched on this a bit.
Yeah,
not like chances are we 100% agree with them in terms of it'd be an absolute travesty if it happens.
Yep, absolutely. All right, mate. So that brings us to this coming Monday. So it will be Easter Monday at 4 p.m. at CommBank Stadium. Eels versus the West Tigers, their yearly annual Easter Monday clash. Let's go through the lineups there now. I might do the Slimies first. At fullback, we've got Gutherson. We've got Micah Sevo returning on the wing. Sean Russell remains on the other wing. Will Penasini and Morgan Harper are the centres. Blaze Talangi is moving into 5'8" with Dylan Brown at halfback. Regan Campbell-Gillard and Junior Paulo are the props. Joey Lussick is the hooker. Sean Lane and Bryce Cartwright are the back rowers. However, Cartwright has since been scratched from that side, but interestingly, he's been named today, but as far as we're concerned, he won't be playing. So,
yeah, I think it's just I'm pretty certain I read that he will be literally given up until the final 18 is named to prove his fitness.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Earlier reports had said that he was definitely out, but that's all right. We'll see how we go. Jermaine Hookgood is their lock. They have Luca Moretti, Ryan Madison, Offa Hengawe, and Kelma Tuolangi on the bench. 3 of our former forwards. So they're just using it. That's it. And then their reserves, who cares? All right, on to our side. Let's be honest.
Well, but who's going to be the reserve anyway? Who's going to be the reserve that replaces Madison when he goes onto the bench for Cartwright? Or goes on the starting. So maybe it does matter.
When he breaks Madison, when he comes off, when he breaks a fingernail.
That was great. Keep going.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Jareen Buller at fullback for the Tigers, Charlie Staines and Junior Tupou on the wings. Justin Ollerman, Solomon Tape are the centres. Lockie Galvin is the 6. Aiden Caesar, the 7. Steph and Clemmer are the props. Appy is the hooker. Zaya Papali'i, John Bateman, Fanua Pole are the second rowers and lock respectively. So the team is essentially the same as starting 13. On the bench, we have Bud Sullivan, Alex Seyfarth, Samuel Afeinu, and Asu Kapoa comes in for the head injury assessed, being rested Alex Twal. On our extended list, which does matter, we have Justin Matamua, Latu Fainu, named in the extended squad, which is nice to see. Alex Lobb, Brent Naden, who's been named at fullback for reserves, might I add, and Talon De Silva. Mate, the change there is Kapoa. Was he just next cab off the rank? Do we not have a better replacement for Twal? How do you see that playing out?
Well, there was reports Sione Fainu was going to actually take that spot, but I think he's still injured, so that's not going to happen. So I think he's just the next
week, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's it. I think he was next in line.
It's interesting then, because if you look at the makeup of that bench, you got Seyfarth and Samuela who can both play middle or edge, so they're versatile. You got Asu Kapoa who can play edge or centre, and you got Bud who can play halves or fullback. So you don't have any out and out props. Now I'm assuming that Seyfarth and Sam will play in the middle then, and we'll have Kapoa to play on an edge or be that option. What is your thought?
Yeah, I can't see it going any other way.
The only other thing I could see is the possibility of Seyfarth pushing into the lock at some point, Pole pushing into the prop rotation, and then him therefore being the extra prop. So essentially we see Seyfarth play as that middle, and then Pole gets a rest and comes back on in the centre.
I prefer that if Seyfarth was the prop rotation, because give him a very easy, simple job to do, and he's not that bad. complicate his tasks and he just runs around like a headless chook.
That's true. Keep it simple.
Yeah. So
On straight lines and keep your ball carrying arm off the turf, mate. Tick, tick. Well done.
There you go.
All right, mate. What do you think? How do you think the game's going to play out?
Well, they've got one massive out, potentially two, the Eels. Obviously, Moses is out for, 6 to 12 weeks. Cartwright potentially, most likely, is out. I can see us definitely winning. I don't think we're going to surprise them the way that we surprised the Sharks, but I think we're going to win again. I think it's going to be the first time, since 2018. Correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but I think it's the first time since 2018 we have won 2 games within the first 4 rounds of a season. So,
wow, but that's your prediction.
That's my prediction. I think it's 24-10.
Okay, all right. Okay, it's a hard one. Parramatta's my father's team. We never traditionally play well against them, and we actually look like we are a decent chance, particularly with those outs. So it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is.
But you got to live like you're playing poker. So I'll push all in too. I say it's going to be a little bit tighter than we would like, and I say we're going to get away 18-14. I think they're going to go out to a 14-6 lead at some point during the game, and I think we'll come back, get in front, and then we'll have to have a nail-biting finish for the last 10-15.
So you and I will have a heart attack by the end of it. Sick.
Oh, mate, West Tigers, that's what we do.
Yeah.
All right, so, mate, before we push to wrapping up, we've still got to do our bold prediction, but before we do that, I just want to ask you, with Mitch Moses out, now, Mitch Moses last week, just for the record against Manly, had 3 try assists, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, and he saved himself a try as well when he batted the ball out from Brooks scoring off the grubber. So everything revolves around Parramatta. Everything at Parramatta revolves around Mitch Moses. Why are they a threat this week without him?
Because I think probably Gutho will get involved a lot more. And he is a smart footballer as well. Very, very clever. Not your flick pass or anything like that, but can make things happen. And I think if he gets involved more, that's definitely a bit more of a danger sort of scenario. So, but
okay, so yeah, Gutho.
Yeah, probably more Gutho. Obviously, with the young halves, if you pressure Dylan Brown, he'll probably be the main kicker. I reckon probably him and Gutho will take a bit of the kicking to, I guess, ease that youngin coming through. I actually am pretty surprised they didn't name Ethan Sanders, if I'm being honest. But so,
I guess Talangi had a good game last week, and he's probably neck and neck, I'd say. Yeah, righto. And how do you beat him?
Yeah. Pressure Brown. I think we're probably one of the few forward packs that can match Paulo and RCG. So I think we can definitely match them, put pressure on their forwards, and just get in Brown's face. And I think that goes a long way to at least securing territory and scoring opportunities. We've just got to continue to convert.
Yeah, good. We played a good, strong power game up the middle, and we played to our strengths last week, which was quality. I think we turned them around early, and I think we gang tackle those two. I think you put a target on their head, and it's take them out, legally, basically. It's all hands on deck for those two in particular. You wrap up the ball and you give them everything. You gang tackle them. I don't care if it leaves us short on the edges. If that ball's wrapped up and you make sure that's the case, that works. And then I think you turn them around early. You use Caesar to kick to the corners real early in the game to make those props do their up and backs and just try to take the sting out of them early. And then I think the last one is you push to their edges. Anywhere where Morgan Harper is, that's what you attack.
Yeah, now that you say that, he'll have a blinder. You know this, don't you?
Yeah, probably. That's all right. I'm used to that. Used to putting the mockers on everyone.
That's what you
mate,
do.
you got a bold prediction?
I think I think I said this either last week or the week before, but I think Fa'atape will get over for his first NRL try. I think he was close a few times last week, and he was close a couple of times against the Raiders. I think his time's coming. I think it's this week, especially if he's on Morgan Harper's side, which I think he is.
Is he? Yeah, right. I have to look at how those sides look at how those sides line up again. Yeah, he will. He'll be on Morgan Harper.
There you go.
That'd be an interesting one. If it had been Fa'atape against Penasini, that would have been a good matchup. It would have been 3 in a row because he would have had Timoko and Penasini. Timoko, Talakai and Penasini. Probably 3. You throw Stags in there, 3 of the more powerful centres in the comp consecutively. Yeah. So it's a bit of a baptism of fire. But alas, he's got Harper. So that'd be an interesting one.
Yep. What about yourself?
I actually think he's going to set up Staines for a couple.
Staines will catch it?
Yeah, I reckon Staines will bag a double.
Okay.
I think that Fa'atape, and I want to start saying my man Fa'atape, not for any reason other than I freaking love him. I love how much he competes. I think he'll get some early ball this week, and he'll have a chance to sort of do a number on Harper, and Stainsy will be the beneficiary. Final score.
Can't complain with that.
I think I said 18-14, didn't I?
18-14, and I think I said 24-10.
You did. We'll say nearest the pin, eh?
Nearest to the pin. Also, reminder too, I'm not sure if you know, but the New South Wales Cup game is on KO or Foxtel before it.
Is it? Beautiful. Very good. So that would be at 1 p.m, I'm assuming?
12:40 Queensland time. But I think... No, that's next week. Wait, when does Daylight Savings end? I think it ends on Monday.
Does it? I'm not sure. New South Wales listeners, let us know. We're stuck here in Brisbane, so we lose track of it a little bit.
Yep.
The sooner the better.
Yes.
Mate, anything you want to say on the Parramatta game before we wrap it up?
No, I think we, again, I thought this was going to be a nice quick one, but you and I just tend to go long-winded and keep talking, so...
Oh, mate, that was a performance that you want to talk about, though. You know, sometimes it's hard to wait for 3 or 4 days from a good performance, and you want to get it out, but it allows us to sort of decompress a little bit and approach it a bit more logically. No, it was good fun.
It was.
Yeah. All right, mate. I'm going to jump into the PSAs, if you please. 2 podcasts we always say do things as well as us. West Life Podcast and the West Tigers Podcast. You can find those 2 groups over on all your favourite platforms. They do great work, both of them, and let them know who sent you. The boys from Tiger Town Podcast. Once again, thanks to our sponsor, Best on Ground Digital, bestonggrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guys. They support the show. You can support them, bestonggrounddigital.com. They won't steer you wrong. Mate, what about us?
Hey.
What about me, as Shannon Noel says? Where do you find us, mate?
You find us on Instagram, on YouTube, on Apple, on... I think we're on the next Nicki Minaj single.
Spotify, Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, I think we're on the next Nicki Minaj single.
And Facebook. Don't forget the Facebook page. We are on all those platforms under our name. Tiger Town Podcast. You find us on all of them. If you're not over there, follow, like, subscribe, all those good things. We provide as much content as we possibly can, updates on juniors, rumour mills, things like that. It's a good time. Get on over to all those platforms and follow us if you enjoy the stuff that we do, mate. Monday, Easter Monday. Love the Easter Monday clash. Not always, depending on the result. But this week, very much looking forward to it off the back of the last one. Can't wait.
I think we won not last year, the year before, Easter Monday clash. I think that's when we broke our drought. We broke our drought, so...
2022, that was a big day.
It was.
A stressful game.
You think it's going to be another one?
Oh, hopefully not. Fingers crossed. Mate, have a lovely afternoon. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been Zac and Toby for the Tiger Town Podcast. We'll talk to you soon. And above all else, Toby, one last thing. Go the West Tigers.
Go the Tigers.
It's not about me, it's about the team and just for the club on a whole.